begin the second year of this series. And as things keep changing, it's actually going to be the second Thursday, which will be June 8th, our special guest host, because I'll be reading in Vancouver. And the readers will be Meredith Stewart and Claudia Savage, who has a new book out. In July 20th, I only have one reader so far, and that's Josh Lubin, but I'm trying to find some other people, or some other person. I myself am going to be doing my first reading of the year next Wednesday, the 24th, at Common Grounds Coffee House at 7 p.m. with Mark Sargent, an old friend who's returning from Greece, and Jennifer Robin. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read a poem or two.
Excellent.
I've been doing political poems every week at KBOO, but they don't always communicate well, so I came in and he said yesterday, well, there's no news, we're doing this special program instead. But I already had the poem, so here it is. Just how crazy does Trump have to get before enough Republican senators? How big must the gun be with how much smoke pouring from it before enough Republican congressfolk? How many thousands of people must protest for how many weeks before enough Republican politicians remember who they represent, what their jobs are? We can't wait till 2018. We can't relax our efforts till enough Republican politicos remember they are human beings.
Amen.
And it's just fun just doing these things spontaneous. It's nice, you know, you get that hook in your head, like before enough, and then it just kind of goes. And this was like about a week and a half ago when we were having that wonderful March weather.
You mean yesterday?
Last week, yeah. As the title indicates, it's called Darkness at Noon 30.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday was a solid day.
All day.
Yeah, I have my window looking towards I-205. But yeah. As if on an island of vegetation, reflecting, refracting, resurfacing the rain and all I see, changing the relationship between asphalt and tire, their songs and conversation. The only thing regular about birds is dusk, dawn, and you never know when a crow. Like 3 at 6 a.m. arguing with a German shepherd, or maybe discussing why the rain hadn't come yet. Dogs smell rain approaching, while birds feel it between their feathers, like a question, a possibility, that around the next corner is something edible. The only way to stop the rain is to keep the clouds from forming. Paving over trees, while paving over delays trees, chainsaws and pine beetles have no reverse, no other side to get back from. When what the rain the grass has been saving can offer the rain on the bird feet just landed. 2. Most islands are tops of volcanoes. Some redwoods grow 200 feet up in other redwoods. Islands in our pancreas, parts of the brain no one can swim to, island as hollow as a dead reef, islands of plastic tethered only by compassion. As my island picks up speed, thinking if the clouds give chase they might get thin enough to leak a little light, still having faith the sun's out there, not some meager substitute incandescence on the other side of clouds not needing to be as thick. Clouds mingling in traffic, mazing intersections, playing rain bingo where every block's a number between thirsty and now. 3. Bridges smothering islands, turbines to slow the wind, solar panels to make the world darker and colder, long oars to put out my second-story windows and row downstream till a sudden 90-degree turn, a belief momentum is greater than friction. Knowing how mountains become ocean is beyond my pay grade, lifespan, comprehension. As in a continuum closer to how things work, my conscious life is a raindrop of ephemeral stellar complexity, an island of verdant growth on a planet of frozen air. Another face in a transmission that's been downloaded, retrofitted, and scattergun so often, no way to tell fact from fiction. How all those moons got turned into vehicles. Why this is a planet with billions of islands and no continents. When the ice caps go, all the oceans will be one. Most islands not underwater will be deserts, habitable only by those who can drink from deep in the earth, who'd been oppressed by oxygen and human temperatures. 4. The difference between an island, a node, and a neuron. How most of the ways to link a network are beyond our biosanity. I only breathe when it rains. Since I'm the earth, it's always raining somewhere. Anybody else? Well, thanks to Amanda.
Well,
Thanks to
Amanda, do we
You
have
good?
time to do a little like Q&A?
Go
Do
ahead.
we have a little bit? Which is because I just things kind of came up during your meetings.
Okay.
Do we have time?
Sure.
Good time?
Sure. It's not even 8.
All right, it's early.
Yeah, we don't have any, open mic
Okay.
readers, so.
Yeah. And last month we actually filled all 6 open mic spots.
Wow.
And I didn't even take one. So
Well, it just feels
things
like
can happen.
It feels like you guys you have some parallels. One that I was noticing is just the rhythmic, almost listing. I mean, it's really in a lot of your
Yeah.
pieces is, and it just the one that the
Accord.
make. What's that poem with? Can I look at your book?
It's in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere.
It's the it's like the third to the last one you read, or the fourth to the last one
Yeah.
you read.
There's a
Here,
list
where's
of,
your list?
of which,
Anyways, just that way of entering the poem, it just felt like, what does that do for you to have like a list? Is it a musical thing? Is it is it prompt? Or is it,
That's interesting.
like, where does that come from? Because I do it too sometimes, as a way to enter a
Yeah.
poem, but then
Yeah.
I might change it later.
Yeah.
But it's really part of the structure of both of your pieces.
And I read a
Your
lot of the
works.
ones, like not all my stuff. I did read a lot that were that way.
Yeah, yeah.
The what ifs.
Yeah, the
what
two
if
what
poems.
ifs, yeah.
But that's really posing
Oh.
a question
Yeah.
with each one.
Are the poems in the earlier book like that too, or in the earlier books? Or is it just
No.
a newer
Grateful for
mode
your
kind of?
notes.
They're more narrative. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah.
The running one. The running one.
Oh, the running one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, sorry.
yeah.
I just
yeah.
had to look at you.
Oh, yeah, it's a,
Yeah.
So,
Well, so
I don't know if I do it on purpose or I just kind of do it.
Mm-hmm.
so
Sometimes
is
I
it
do
like
on
a way to
purpose.
get around the circle? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like you're-
sometimes. Yeah,
like
because it,
like the thinking takes you around, like you're
Yeah.
trying to get to this place.
well,
so that
sometimes
gets
I
you
for
there,
sure
or-
do it on purpose. At least like the way that the stanzas will start sort of the same and that sort of list, but I tend to be effusive with adjectives too. Lists of adjectives. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, and
It's
a
just
cool
part of-
variation on that
Yeah.
was in the basketball poem, the way the squeaking kept.
Yeah, I
showing
use
up.
a lot of repetition, and that's true in that too. I think I just use a lot of repetition in general.
Well, it feels like it brings, for me as a listener, brings me back to this. It's like a musical note. So like the squeaking is very much a sound, but it's a variation. So it's never going to
Yeah.
mean the same thing, even though it's the same combination of words. It twists it ever so slightly. But I hadn't noticed that really
I like
until
the
I heard
idea of a
both of
musical
you.
note.
Yeah.
Oh no, I gotta change it.
No.
I always, when I'm listening to that, I it's an anchor for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if that's kind of what you're
Yeah. Yeah.
suggesting, but it's an anchor because so I know that I'm gonna, after I hear a few things down the list, then I know that I know where it's gonna go, and I can hang on there, and then listen to the rest of it. I like how that feels. It's comforting to me.
Yeah, you know where the beginning's going to start.
Yeah.
But maybe, because I know a lot of your end lines are really surprising. Like
Kind of my thing.
it is kind of, but I mean in a way that like makes sense
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Where you have like real closure when you get to the end of yours. Like, oh, like
Yeah.
that feeling.
The last lines are really important.
They
yeah,
are.
They are.
Do you, can you speak about do you have that in mind first, or is it something that evolves that you just,
I never
No
start with
words.
my last lines.
when you think of a fiction writer knowing the end?
Right, I never know the end. Like that basketball poem, like until I got to the, I mean, it's not in stanzas, it's one full long thing, but until I got to the end, I wasn't even in it. You know, the heart wasn't even there, and then it's like, oh, there's the poem. You know,
Right.
like, there it is. And then sort of run with that for a while, and then go back and tweak
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I found
Yeah.
it, particularly in a couple of recent poems, you get this really good line, and it almost has to come last, even though it wasn't originally written last. You know?
Yeah.
And again, my poem's a little less linear than some other people's, but still, you know, as a strong, it's like hard to put anything after it. Kind of seems almost anticlimactic.
It almost gives you the ending though. It's like when you have those good lines, it's like, okay, that's it. It's
Yeah,
all
Yeah.
done.
this is where it
This is
goes.
where
Even if you
This
write
is
where
where
you're
I
like,
stop.
now, you pretty much know
Yeah.
where it's gonna stop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, how are you ready?
Bad.
Bad animal.
But do you know where your poems are going when you start? I pretty much never
No.
do. Even with
No.
these daughter poems, sometimes like Goldilocks, I'd be like, okay, Goldilocks is about homelessness, but I didn't really know where it was going to take me, you know?
I do have that occurrence of a line coming too soon, and
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't belong there, so
Yeah.
it might go somewhere else. I've had this weird thing lately though, that I try writing something out, and I can't. I can do it on my phone. Is this bad?
Fascinating.
Because I almost need, because I don't usually have my computer,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to see the structure
Yeah.
in a way that I can't. And I think I'm too much on my phone. Maybe you just can change myself
Yeah.
as a writer.
Bigger phone.
Like a-
Well, I used to write everything longhand until computers, and now I do it all on the screen, which is different. You're like
Yeah.
moving things around as
You
you're
can move
writing,
things
and
around,
I didn't ever used to write that way. So
Yeah, I would say I write more on the computer now than, or
Yeah.
on my phone than I used to always
Never
write
written on
everything
my
out.
phone.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I know
Yeah.
it's evolution, but it's not always. It's just recently, like without much time.
yeah,
I get impatient, but
yeah,
But it's just good. I mean, it's a good improvement because back in the old day, you know, when you had to change one line in the poem, you had to retype the whole
Oh,
page.
but
I
when I've
remember
been to
those days.
residencies, I take my typewriter specifically for that purpose.
Oh, really?
So that you're always
oh, that's
revisiting every
Interesting.
single line.
Mhm.
Always see it.
It's a real physical process.
Well, I think a lot of workshops that I've done, and that's when I'm working with paper. Like you're doing a free write during the workshop, or you're doing something, and I'm like, oh yeah, writing on paper.
Mm-hmm.
No, the poem about Eliot and the scientific model was written recently at this workshop I did in Manzanita from a prompt. You know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I get surprising things out of it, like, oh hey, that still.
You generate a lot of
Kind of.
material.
Yeah,
that you
exactly.
can go back to.
Yeah, exactly. Generate more that way, I think.
Can I ask about your political poems and how
Mhm.
you're, because to me, they were not overtly political. They
Mhm.
felt very much how I kind of feel about the
Mhm.
approaching it is through my own
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
like my kids
Mhm.
or how you almost have these parallels happening
Mhm.
alongside this big, global dramas
Yeah.
and
That's the only way I know how to get into it now. I think 'cause I've never done it before, and
Right.
but it feels important to start now or something. But that's the lens. Like that's how it's affecting me. It's through my kids or whatever. Came about. Yeah, it's the way in.
how do you keep, because I never wanted to do it myself because I didn't want to be ranting,
Yeah, that's the
Or I
hard. Like,
didn't
that's
want
what I
to
was worried about too.
to feel like I was knew anything, like what do I know?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Right.
when you write from the questions that your kids ask, because I've
Yeah.
done some of those, because my daughter, my granddaughter's half Mexican, so having to answer questions for my daughter about what's going on, she's 22, but, she's having a very different experience as a mother than I did, and so just trying to write from her fears that are so very
Right,
different
right.
from mine, so,
Mm-hmm.
and you have kids asking you questions, and
Yeah.
you have to try to answer them the best that you can. So
That's what kind of started it for me. Is I have another one that I wrote the day after the election, because when my daughter went to bed, she still thought Hillary was going to be president in the morning, and it's the first time she'd ever paid attention to anything political at all, and she didn't really know that much about, like she just knew that Hillary was a woman and she was going to maybe be president, and that was cool. And that writing about that morning of this thing, like what she, because the thing she said to me was, she, I told her what had happened, and she just kind of, her whole face just kind of fell, and like, and I'm trying not to cry, I'm trying to hold it together for her, and then she just says to me, Mom, I think there's a lot of people out there who think women aren't as good as men, and that was the whole, that's what she took from it, and then having to like address that sort of started my whole,
Pretty political.
like, what do I tell her now,
yeah. But I think
So-
those are really interesting perspectives.
Yeah.
What your kids are saying to you, and maybe what they're not saying to you, and things maybe you haven't thought about.
Yeah,
That's the good stuff.
yeah.
It's so funny that you said you're afraid that your poems are going to come across as ranting. I assume that a lot of people don't write political poems because they don't want them to be dated.
That too. Well, that too. Sometimes
But
that's hard,
ranting,
but
it didn't occur to me that that would be a concern of like.
that
Well,
can be
it's
done well too.
it's
Like the
not
first
poetic,
one you
right?
read was a little bit of a rant, but
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, like if you can do
But that
it
was done for
successfully, I don't know if I
radio,
can
it's
do
kinda
that.
real
Like
compressed,
that's not
but
the way
yeah.
I can do it.
Cathartic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think everyone should rant.
Yeah, I think we
It's-
have a reason to now.
Yeah.
It's been a cool opportunity for me to have that thing at the radio station. I mean, I
Yeah,
also go and
yeah.
write news stories, so I'm there for a couple hours. But, I rhyme about half the time. I mean, I say for my political poems, my two main poetic influences are Jim Hightower and Dr. Seuss. And we can kind of, it's a good way to go. You can make it funny, you can be outrageous.
It's
I
the
mean, when you don't
absurdity.
worry
It's
about
taking
it.
the absurdity of the politics and making it your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in a way, there's always that tendency, again, even in these short pieces, to try and, you don't want it to be a total bummer. The last verse is usually community, or maybe we got a chance. Or
Right.
whatever.
Like a little bit of hope.
But
Yeah.
because these are just hard times. I mean, people are doing all kinds of things. I mean, my wife started learning Spanish a few months ago, and
Me too.
and we've been watching West Wing, just
Yeah.
in Camelot, but
Watch Veep to get a little balance there.
Yeah.
I've been learning about
otherwise we don't watch it.
Huey Long.
Oh wow!
Who was a senator, a first governor, senator from Louisiana. He was the one who he wanted to create this platform in Louisiana where you couldn't make over $100,000, and if you did, you had to put it into the pot to get
So
like shared by
communist?
everyone else.
Like anybody in the
He-
state couldn't make over 100,000.
Yeah.
What a
That
fascinating
was his
idea.
plan, and he learned about corruption really fast. And he took to it like a fish to water.
So when you siphon off that top seed.
But he got
What
to
was
be a
the book?
senator. Oh, I've been just reading this biography
That
of his
novel,
and
though,
learning.
that was about
Oh, I don't. the Warren, right? All the King's Men.
All the King's Men. Yeah.
And when he got
Broderick
into the Senate and he learned about the filibuster, he just became this unstoppable force because he would just like, I'll just do this as long as I can. And he had just attacked FDR left and right. It was like, this guy was born with money. He cannot solve our problems with this New Deal. Only someone like I can, because I came from nothing and was a, he was a crazy, crazy, outrageous man who was like, I don't know, like maybe the little Donald Trump, little George Soros. I don't know, just a crazy, crazy figure. And so it's been an interesting, like,
Cajun. Sort of the
Well,
culture environment of
history
Louisiana
repeats
probably. has
Yeah.
something to do with it.
I mean, he was like, we are going to get these oil companies out of here. They're not going to be able to just take whatever they want. Like, he did these outrageous things, was like, yeah, close down the refineries. I don't care. I'm going to... But then he was like, we need a new governor's mansion, and the representatives were just like, no, you don't. That's ridiculous. So he got he got his family installed in the penitentiary, and he had them bring all these convicts over and just tear down the governor's mansion. And I was like, all right, I need the money requisitioned to build a new governor's mansion now that it's gone.
Wacky.
Yeah, I mean, he was crazy. So that's my.
It could be worse. It could be you.
I don't know. That's the thing is, you find these shining moments, and then you're like, oh, and then, you know, yeah.
I had a moment of trying to put my own family issues in this context, because my mother is super conservative and is just so defensive that she voted for Trump because she has the right to vote for anyone, and that you know, I do feel like I'm in a bubble. I don't really realize what other people are thinking about the left and this whole entitlement thing. That like, I mean, really, that healthcare is, you know, we should be paying for other sick people because it's their own damn fault. That kind of mentality. So I took that and wrote this poem about my grandma. I think I have it on my phone.
Oh,
read
yes.
it.
Yeah.
Because it turned into this thing, and I wrote it. No, I wrote it with pen. I was gonna say I wrote it all with my finger, but it addressed this issue that my mother was raised in a Republican home, but those types of Republicans would not go for any of this. They
Right.
were also raised in the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was raised by a UAW worker, worked for Henry Ford, who kept all his workers on the line by giving them at least one shift a week to give them like a job. And so they were like eternally grateful to FDR, and like, but so they were all raised. Their kids were raised with like this feeling of service, like
Yeah.
you know, and so that still held through even with the Republican. Like they had pictures of Reagan on the wall and stuff. And,
Yeah.
sorry, my phone's.
Well,
And so this is her.
yeah, it's tough, the background. I mean, my parents, both of them voted for George Wallace for president in '68 and '72. So kind of, there was a small Polish ghetto surrounded on three sides by a large black ghetto, and there was a fair share of tension, to put it that way. And the high school I went to, I was part of the 30% white minority.
Where'd you grow up?
In Pittsburgh, Shenley
Oh, that's
High.
right.
My junior year, we were state basketball champions, led by a guy named Maurice Lucas, former Portland Trailblazer. And they didn't want any white guys playing basketball or messing them up. Last guy who tried had his ankles broken.
Do you have it?
I find it really crazy that there's this weird, this like evangelical streak of conservatism that believes that it's God's will. If you're sick, it's because you did something wrong, and God wants you to be sick, and I find it totally flummoxing.
Yeah, so this is her. The hospital volunteer. Tuesdays, she checks into the gift shop and snaps up the pink smock piped in blue, fills her cart with everything the sick upstairs might need. Playing cards for young men in recovery, comic books for children with no hair, soft white bears for ladies missing their dogs, people for women waiting for labor to kick in. She's cheer on wheels. There's not a nurse at their station who doesn't know her name. Alice, embroidered in scarlet, the smock full up to her neckline with roses and crosses, stars and hearts she wears like congressional medals, knocking on doors quietly, as if each patient were a guest, every gift in her cart free of charge. So for me, that's a political poem.
Yeah.
You know, it maybe doesn't it's like more personal political, but like something has changed in our
It's-
compassion. Like
Yeah.
our where did that nerve go, that
Yeah,
part of our heart?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a political poem 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost, we wouldn't have seen it that way. Or maybe even 10, you know. The atmosphere has really...
Well, what does Congress reward right now? Are they rewarding that kind of attitude towards each other?
This is what
right?
Congress really is, just sitting on your hands, doing the thing, just...
Hiding the evidence in their asses.
That's right.
That's not my wallet that's getting fatter, okay?
So I appreciate, you know, like I feel like that's going to start more and more of this current, because I feel like there's so many poets and people who are, like, they need to respond somehow, but also within their own comfort level and their own, like, voice. Their
Yeah.
own,
Yeah, it was to you read Rattle online?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that, and that's sort of like
the poets respond.
Poets Respond. Yeah, it's this. Do you guys read Rattle online journal? It's an online literary journal, but they have a weekly feature called Poets Respond, and submissions are every Friday at midnight, and your poem has to be about something that happened in the news that week. It doesn't necessarily have to be a political poem, but it has to be something that happened in the news that week, responding to some story that you saw in the news, and then they publish it on Sunday, and it happens that fast, and that kind of got me going, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, like, I could do one of these, you know. I did, and there's that, because I feel like if I don't do it immediately when I've listened to something that's had an impact on me, I'm not going to write it. But if
That's
I write
true.
it immediately, and so I
Go
use
with the
that sort of
spark.
deadline as like I can write one of these this week, you know, just as a way to, like, yeah, it's time to respond to it right now. Like, I can do this right now.
And
There's
it's,
an urgency to it or something.
that's being a part of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Not just receiving the news, but, like,
responding
responding to it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you lived in New York,
I haven't lived in New York.
oh.
No.
I thought you lived, I thought those were bad.
She just visited there a lot.
I've just visited
Oh,
there.
okay. When you were
When I was in New York, I wish, right?
Well, I was curious about the beginning of,
It's nicely immersed. though,
Your
right?
introduction
Feels
about-
like you were living
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
that's what I assumed. Was it being strangled by the trees? Which
Mhm.
I don't have that feeling at all. I feel very strangled around people in cities and
Mhm.
the commotion. Like, just driving around Portland and, like, how many people there are in their houses and how many TVs and things, like, it freaks me out. I have, like, the human crush phobia condition. So, like, how do you, like, when you're there, there's so much going on in so many levels. How did you filter it out to, like, write about love? Like, how did you, like, focus?
Oh goodness. You know, when I'm in New York, it's very peaceful for me.
Really?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if it's just the hum of the city, it's just there's that energy there that, I mean, it's very exhilarating, but it's also wears you out. I mean, by day 4, I'm about ready to pass out, but I'm just very much at peace there for some reason. It's very strange. It's like there's so much going on, it's almost like you have to find that center for yourself
Okay.
and just kind of get centered and quiet. And so you could take in everything, because it's sensory overload.
So is it kind of the opposite here, like a sensory underload?
Yeah, it's kind of like probably trees again.
It
Mud
doesn't
puddles,
matter.
right?
It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I've always just, I can write very well in New York. Yeah. It was kind of startling to me too, because I mean the most of the poems that were written I wrote like 21 poems within a week.
Wow.
They
Oh
just,
my gosh.
yeah, just like every morning I'd just get up and I'd write about what we had done the night before, just observations or so. Yeah.
I would think being, like, on the Staten Island ferry would be really great, because you're right, you're a calm center of all this hubbub.
Well, and my brother and I went to Ellis Island too and saw our great grandparents' name on the wall, and you know, there's all that controversy about immigrants and stuff, and I'm like, we're all immigrants,
Yeah.
you know, and that was one thing I did. There is a poem in here about that, just being aware that we don't have any more claim to this country than anybody who's coming